Hop onto the shuttle bus this week as we discuss captains and cruise ships. We are your hosts, Faith and Sapph. Welcome to Shuttle Bus Podcast. Good evening and welcome to the shuttle bus. This week we are discussing captains and cruise ships. I am your host, Faith, and I'm with my co-host here, Sapph. Say hello, Sapph.
Hi, Faith. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to be here to discuss captains and cruise ships to kick off our of June discussion over the next few episodes. So, what is your first point? Let's go ahead and just jump right into it. What is your first point of something you wanted to talk about captains and cruise ships?
So, I didn't actually realize that the song was playing at first because I had it on in the background. I was, making notes on it and stuff, but I had it on in the background while finishing something up, and I was like, "Oh, I'm halfway through the song already." So, I'm gonna chalk that up to kind of being like that. It feels really natural and easy to flow into because, I mean, I don't know about you, but Captains and Cruise Ships was one of my like childhood favorites, I guess, and I listened
Hmm.
to it quite a lot as being a new Owl City fan. So it's kind of cozy, feels like childhood, and I it felt natural to be listening to it with or without like making notes on it. You know what I mean? Like, does that make
Yeah,
sense? Yeah.
yeah, because there's some else that when we're sitting down to prepare for these episodes. Sometimes it feels not like a chore per se, but like we got to like sit down and really think about it. And then there's just some that are like, yeah, this is just it's just more chill to listen to. I don't know. I don't know how to describe that, but I 100% get what you're getting at. Like it's just so calm. I will say, Captains and Cruise Ships was definitely one of my go-to when I was first getting into Owl City. It's just good. It's very nostalgic, I will say.
Yeah, nostalgic is a really, really good word for it. Um, and it feels good. It feels right. Of June, I would say it definitely sets the tone of June, which is why we are discussing it first, even though it's not the first song on the. Is it an album or an EP?
EP.
On the EP. Okay, I thought it was an EP, but I didn't want to be like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna sound dumb on the recording because I say it's an EP and it's an album.
Yeah,
So
I want to say classification for EP is like I just recently researched this and
seven
I don't exactly remember,
songs.
but it might be 7 songs or less as an EP,
That's what I
and
was
of June is
thinking.
7 songs, and then
Okay,
anything that's like 8 or more, or something like that, is an album. I can't remember the exact definition between an EP and an LP, but yeah.
an LP. Yeah, I'm not sure what the definition of an LP is, but I was thinking 7 songs. So yeah, but what else have you got to say on it?
Um, so kind of on the production of it, it is wildly different than any of his other works. It's like it's very simple, not in a bad way, but it's much simpler than anything else he's made. Like maybe I'm dreaming and beyond. There's a lot of production going on. There's a lot of layering. You can listen to it and pick out all these like complicated sounds he's layered together, which he's kind of like become known for, I guess, in his sound. Like you listen to these super layered music, kind of with maybe I'm dreaming and beyond. And like, yeah, that's Owl City music. Um, but with Of June specifically, I feel like Captains and Cruise Ship is a good example of this. But Of June, the layering is not as like chaotic and like filled as his other albums. And it has a very simple nature to it, but that's part of its charm. It's very chill, which is part of all of June's charm. And I feel like Captains and Cruise Ships is like a good example to it. And like part of it can probably be chalked up to it's his first Owl City production, so he's still learning, but like it's not bad. Just because it's simpler and he's learned more since Of June doesn't make Of June bad. It still really holds up well, even after all these years and after all he's learned in music production.
I definitely agree, and I would say like In terms of a starting album, as you said, it still really holds up. I know there's a lot of haters out there of it. But I personally still really enjoy it. I couldn't say that I hate it. I couldn't go that far. Um, and I don't know every single song off of it. I've listened to everything before, but I couldn't tell you what the names were of each song. I don't listen to it that much. But Captains and
Yeah.
Cruise Ships is very much like the all encapsulating or encapsulating song of June. So yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Um, have you got anything else?
No, I think we can go into your next
Okay,
point.
so I was wondering. He said that he's stuck in LA through the week and can't get away, and I was wondering, is that maybe a reference to an experience? I know he doesn't often write about experiences, but I was wondering if that was something that perhaps was because songwriters and musicians and just from hearing people who are in the music business, it seems like LA is definitely like a very large epicenter for musicians and artists of all types. Sort of like Hollywood is for movie actors and things. So I was wondering, do you think that that part could be true? Maybe he was like locked into a business deal or something. I don't know.
So I feel like this actually plays into my second part, which is interesting. So we'll kind of go. I'll kind of answer that with my second part, or my second point that I was going to make, which is the beach imagery. I love that Of June and like his early works are filled with ocean and beach imagery, which kind of answers your question, I think. Back in an old interview, I can't remember what the interview was and exact wording he used, but he was talking something about the lines of back when he was starting to write music. He never really traveled outside of Minnesota. I know at one point, because we're told in cinematic, that he had been to New York with a bunch of friends, like in high school. But like he never really traveled outside of Minnesota. And he never had really been to the ocean. And so that's why he would write about the ocean and the beach so much, because like he said, as a as this kid growing up in rural can't say that word, rural Minnesota, he felt, not trapped, but kind of trapped, and like you dream of something bigger and what else is out there, and like the ocean seemed like the farthest place from the middle of nowhere in the Midwest. And so that's why he would write about the ocean and the beach so much, because that's what he would like dream of when he would think of these like magnificent places, because he could write about anything in his music. And so he chose to write about these magnificent places that he wished to someday visit and like see. And so he always thought about the beach and the ocean. And so he'd write about that imagery a lot. So I think that's possibly what that lyric is, because I don't think he really traveled that much until he went on tour for Ocean Eyes. And so I think during that whole Ocean Eyes is when he actually got to see the ocean and like got to travel. I might be wrong, and I might be getting my details a little fuzzy, but because at the time of June, I think he was either still working at the Coca-Cola factory or UPS. So he was still working like a normal factory job. And so I think that's why he's talking about, the LA and the beach and the ocean, is because that's what he always dreamed about and was like, that was like his state of mind of like, that's got to be the coolest place to be, is on the ocean.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I didn't know like any details of when this was written or much a whole bunch about his private life during this time period. So I wasn't really sure where he'd been. But my next point is about the line uh, count the stars, watch the waves, absorb the summer sun, and think of me. And I like the way he says it. It makes me feel really happy because number one, it's a very, very cute line, but like how he says it, I guess the cadence of it, like the timing of it. Count the stars, watch the waves, absorb the summer sun. Like that little part is so well timed and really, really cute.
Yes. Yeah, I can't agree more. It's just wonderful, which kind of also leads into my next point, which is just he has great lyrics, and he's known for his great lyrics, especially I feel like he's really known for his lyrics in his earlier works, kind of, All Things Bright and Beautiful and before, and it's just I feel like Captains and Cruise Ships is a really good example of, like, how he started out with his lyrics, and his lyrics are so good that I can't really pick out a favorites from this song because I listen to it and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that line's so good," and then I get to the next line, it's like, "Oh my gosh, that line's so good," and it's just like, there's such good lines one after another that, like, I'd be listing out the whole song, and I agree, his cadence, the way he sings, like, this whole like, especially the line you just mentioned, but, like, the whole song, the way he delivers it is also just, like, great, and it's like, "Oh, I love this." I forgot how much I love Captains and Cruise Ships until I was listening to it again to, like, write my notes and everything. It's like, "Oh my gosh, this song's so good."
Me too, girl. Me too. It's overall just so it's so sweet. It's like a love letter almost. It's almost like a love letter, and I think it's just a really sweet tune overall. Um and it kind of makes me think about like the line, when you were home we'd sing, but since you've left I don't hear anything. I'm wondering, is this like,
So
did the
good.
girl move away? Did she like leave him, and this is like a kind of a like a don't worry I'm coming back to you? I don't know. um and it
Huh.
like, I've never thought about it until I was taking notes, because you've also got old captains and brand new cruise ships, and I'm like, okay, does that mean that he's an old captain and a brand new cruise ship is either the girl, or like, do you think maybe like the brand new cruise ship could be like a brand new relationship or something? I thought that would be a really
Yeah,
interesting comparison to make. But then again, I'm like, you've got some really sweet, sappy lyrics, so I may be reading too much into it, but I thought about that. I'm like, you could kind of see it both ways. Like, he's still longing for the relationship, but she's like broken it off, or it
yeah.
could just be like, don't worry, I'm coming back for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't think I've really to be honest, I don't know if I've ever thought that much into the lyrics, so it's interesting to hear, like, somebody who has taken some time to, like, think over the lyrics and see what their thoughts are in it. Because I just kinda, like, listen to it and, like, vibe out, you know? Like, I don't think I put that much thought to it, so that's pretty
That
cool.
Yeah,
I
that's
do
that's
like
usually what I do, is
the
just vibe. So
like it's like almost roles reverse where I'm over here like over analyzing things and coming up with like these deep like backgrounds and you're like, dude, it's just a vibe. I'm like, okay, I'll chill out.
I know, right? We like, you're just like over here, and you're like, yeah, this is a great tune, and I'm just like, where's the magnifying glass? But no, I've taken your role this week. It's normally switched.
I know. I really feel like we role reverse this week because you're the one who's like usually going to like depth and like the actual production of the music. And then I'm just going off of like pure vibes and like coming up with cool theories for lyrics. And then we're like completely role reverse this week.
I kind of like it
So yeah,
though.
that's funny.
It's really fun to
Yeah.
like delve into like more of the meaning of the lyrics, because that's something like that's really important for me just in general, and on musics and songs and things, is like, if I'm listening to a song, I want to know what I'm listening to, if that makes sense, which is why I'm not like a huge fan of rap, because I can't understand what they're
I can't
saying.
hear what they're
Like, I don't have anything against the artist, but I'm like, okay, I want to know what I'm listening to.
I can't. So when I listen to songs, when people show me songs for the first time, I feel like such a terrible person because they're like super excited to show me this song and I've got like this most like deadpan look on my face and looks like I'm completely not enjoying myself, but I have to like work so hard to understand what they're saying or I can't like I almost have to have lyrics pulled up when I'm listening to songs for the first time because there's like some type of disconnect between listening to songs for the first time and being able to understand what they're saying. Like they can be singing really clearly. My brain's like, I have no idea what they're saying. Look up the lyrics. Like, okay.
I can understand that. That's I so the way I go through finding music is like I will listen to something, I'll enjoy the tune, I'll kind of know the artist, or I'll have found them on a whim and I do like some research into them and like search maybe their discography, listen to a couple other things, and if I really enjoy the song, I'll listen to it over and over. And then when I get to the point of wanting to really know what they are saying, I will pull up the lyrics. Like, I want to know
Yeah.
first what they're saying, or at least go through it a couple of times with my brain. Especially before like I vibe out to it in front of like my parents or something. Um,
Yeah.
but like when I really start to want to know and try to sing it, even I'm like, okay, now it's actually time to analyze and see what this is.
Yeah. Um, so here's a funny story. We're gonna go off on a little quick little side tangent. Hopefully it shouldn't be that long. But speaking of listening to lyrics, I have a tendency because I can't seem to understand what people are saying unless I have the lyrics written out in front of me for the first time. I have a tendency to really mishear some lyrics. And so, I don't even know how I misheard this. But when I was listening to House Rent for the first time, there's that I think it's the line that's like, a country farmhouse or a quiet bungalow. Oh, was that the line? I think it is. No, no, no. Sorry, let me try that again. It's the lyric in House Wren that is to my new humble abode. But for some reason, my brain could not hear him saying that when I listened to it for the first like several times. I'm not talking like the first one or two times I misheard this lyric. I'm saying like probably the first couple dozen, if not more times I listened to this song until I finally listened to the lyrics or looked up the lyrics. But I always thought he was saying Home Boulevard, but he just really couldn't say Boulevard properly. And I'm like, dude, learn how to say the name properly. Say Boulevard properly. Like, if you're gonna put in a lyric, at least pronounce the word right. I just thought he was pronouncing Boulevard wrong this whole time until I finally looked up the lyrics like a few months after the song came out, and I was like, oh, I've been mishearing it, like completely butchering it this whole time.
Wait, so okay.
So
What
yeah,
line was it again?
it's the lyric in House Wren that is to my new humble abode. And my brain
Okay.
took humble abode and translated that to home boulevard. And I thought he was just really butchering it, home boulevard
I
till I realized he was saying humble abode.
I can understand where like why your brain would say that though, because when he is enunciating on House Wren, some of it kind of gets jumbled. It's almost like two things sound similar when they're next to each other. When they're not, then it doesn't sound jumbled. But it's like
Yeah.
it's almost like it's a homophone when it's not really a homophone. But it's just
Yes.
they're in such like close quarters to each other, and so I can
Yes.
understand that. I can really. Although on that note, he says Al Capone really, really strangely in his cover of "Gone" by Switchfoot. Um,
I feel like I don't entirely because I can't like replay that lyric in my head right now, but like I almost kind of get what you're saying.
yeah,
It's been a while since I've listened to it
same
though.
here, but I just distinctly remember looking at the lyrics and I'm like, that's what he's trying to say? Because I don't know if it's there's like a different actual way to pronounce it and everybody just butchers it. It's like almost like somebody's saying Velcro, meaning Velcro, but Velcro is actually a brand, and like
Yeah.
hooks and fabric or hooks and something is like the actual
Loop or hooks and loop
hooks and
tape,
loops
something
tape.
like
There
that.
you go. That's like the actual material, but then Velcro is a brand, but everybody refers to it as Velcro. I don't know if it's the same concept. Like everybody says Al Capone,
Right.
but it's not actually Al Capone. It's something else, and he's pronouncing it right. But
Maybe Adam's the only one to
I'm
get it
not.
right.
I'm not really sure what the difference is. But I just have a distinct remembrance of it being odd. We'll just say odd. I'm not gonna say he's wrong. I'm gonna just say odd. But anyways, what else have you got to
Oh,
offer
where
us
were
today?
we? Let's see. Speaking of the way Adam says things, this is actually really great transition. The way Adam sings is kind of my point. His vocals are so different on Of June and a lot of his earlier work, but Of June especially. Like maybe I'm dreaming, Ocean Eyes, and All Things Bright and Beautiful. Kind of he has the same lyrical or vocal style, and then he kind of adjusted his vocal style a little bit, as he goes with each album. And I feel like nowadays he's really become comfortable with his vocals, and he's kind of got into the style that's like, yeah, that fits my voice. I can, I know how to sing. I kind of like he's messed with auto tune enough that he understands like how to like perfectly auto tune his voice to give it that effect he wants, but not completely masking his voice. And so he's really come into his vocals, as he's gotten older and learned to produce music better. And, well, and has learned more about producing music. But his vocals for Of June, I feel like Captains of Cruise Ships is one of those good examples off of June, but his vocals are so different on Of June compared to all of his other works. And it's not bad. It's a different style. I feel like he's almost over auto tuning his voice on Of June. And I do, and as much as it's like, yeah, you can tell this is baby Adam and he hasn't really learned how to use all his tools yet, completely to the fullest extent. But like, it's not, I kind of like the effect, that almost over auto tuned effect. It's not quite fitting to his voice as much as he's learned now, but like, it's not completely bad, and it is definitely some type of vibe when he over auto tunes his voice in Of June.
Yeah, I absolutely can see what you're saying now that I'm like kind of thinking about that, like the line where he's like, "We sing," but when he goes down, it's almost like it's such a firm note, and you're like, okay, that doesn't quite sound right, but it doesn't sound bad either. And I wonder if we could even go as far as saying that it's his skill, but it's also the time period, because we're talking like probably the time period that,
Yeah.
you know, the Backstreet Boys were really, really popular. Like, and
I mean, this is
like this is
2007,
the
so that's pretty,
yeah, this is the early 2000s, so boy bands were a thing.
right.
And I want to say One Direction was really popular back then. I don't know.
Probably.
I was so young.
But,
But I wonder if we could
yeah,
say part of that influence was because of the style. Um,
that is
Although
possible.
we also know that Adam was a complete pioneer during this age. There wasn't a lot of people doing synths. It was usually guitars, like hard guitars, like
Yeah.
electric.
Like, rock was pretty big.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, electronic rock, whatever the term is called, was very, like, I can't remember what the genre is, but that was very popular at the time with, like, there's so many, I can't remember all, there's so many different bands who were, like, very popular with that style. So Adam's style of, like, synths and everything wasn't very big, especially the way he did lyricism wasn't very big either.
Yeah.
So he was kind of like, I know there's definitely other artists who people say he sounds like, but I don't know how relevant. I don't think they were super relevant at that time. I might be wrong.
I think
Um,
you're right.
but
Yeah.
like, I don't think there was too many. There probably were artists, but there wasn't too many artists at that time doing what Adam was doing. It's not like Adam decided to get into music and do what was ever popular so he could grow. He was just doing what he liked, and that wasn't a super popular genre at the time, and he kind of did his own thing, and that's actually what gave Adam such his popularity was he was doing his own thing. That's actually an interesting story that I'm going to tangent into really quick.
Go for it.
Because when he was first signed on with Universal, whatever, Republic, whatever, the thing he was part of, I've heard two different names for it, and I can't remember what it is. But the music people he was signed on with, they wanted to like really push him to kind of change up a style and be more like basically somebody he wasn't. Um, but the guy, I guess, who was working with Adam more closely was like, "Hey, no, let the dude do what he wants to do for now, because that's kind of what gave him his popularity. Was he was this kid in his parents' basement interacting with people online, and that's how he really grew his popularity, with his connections through MySpace. And people really enjoyed that, and he kind of was doing his own thing, and people really enjoyed that. That's kind of what gave him his popularity at the time. And so they were really wanting to go a different direction with All Things Bright and Beautiful, if I remember correctly. But they said, no, let him do what he wants. Let him have the control over this, because that's what got this dude where he is. Obviously, that kind of changed once we got later. Once we got to like the Midsummer Station and the Mobile Orchestra, they had more control over those. But the one guy was kind of advocating for letting Adam do what he wanted to do for All Things Bright and Beautiful, because it was Adam's choices and the way Adam is and his own style of music that got him where he was with his big success of Ocean Eyes.
That's really neat. I've actually never heard that story. I knew that, especially when we got to the Midsummer Station, and as you mentioned, Mobile Orchestra, that those like both had more of the company labels hand on it. I think it was Atlantic
Yeah,
Records. Is that right? I think
that could be
it's either
right.
Universal or it's Atlantic
Is it
Records. I'm not
Republic
sure,
Records? I don't remember.
but
Uh,
yeah, we're I have no idea anymore. But it's been a while.
and I see it at the bottom.
Yeah, yeah.
Republic Records is what he was a part of. Republic
Okay,
Records.
okay. I don't
I don't know.
remember
I
that.
don't
I don't know
know.
why I don't remember that. But yeah, no. I'm really glad they kind of let him do All Things Bright and Beautiful on his own, because it was a, I guess you could say it was a sequel to Ocean Eyes, in that it gained so much popularity because it was Adam. It was truly his work. And then I guess we don't see that for a
Right.
couple of years. And of course, he comes out with Coco Moon, back last year. And he really said, like, this is what I've been trying to make all these years. This is me. This is the truest form of me. And that just, it feels really good to know that the fans support him in that, and that it was it originally, him being himself, his odd little amazing self, was what got him to where he is now in the long run, and that we support him. So yeah.
Yeah. And of June was the start of that. Back all the way back in like 2007, 2006. I want to say 2007. That was the start to his Owl City journey. And now he's all the way at Coco Moon.
We were five
So
years
that's
old.
pretty crazy.
We were five
Yeah,
years old,
I
Faith.
know.
Oh, that's so bizarre.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. 10 years later, we
Adam
were both listening
was
to Adam.
okay. So when Of June released, which would have been June of 2005 or 7, sorry, I can't talk. 2007, he would have been like a month shy of turning 21 when he released Of June. And now the dude's 38.
That is so
So
bizarre, man.
he's been doing just, I mean, not music completely, like, because he was doing music since he was like 15 or something, but like just the Owl City, name he's been doing for how many ever years, since he was 21 and now he's 38. Somebody do the math, because I can't. That's what, 17 years?
We're gonna go with that because I don't feel like braining tonight. So
Fair
I
enough.
don't feel like braining. But yeah. To bring us back like to where are my notes? Ah, here we go. To bring us back to Captains and Cruise Ships, it's a very bouncy tune, and I like, that's kind of what you were saying about like his auto tune and everything. I like the style, like his auto tune, like paired with the airy style and kind of like bouncy. I want to say boingy. You like
That's a good
boing,
word.
like that
That really sums it up.
boing sound. You know what I mean? Like, I can't think of a
Yes, I
better way
do.
to say it. Uh,
That sums it
it's
all up. That's just like the perfect description.
it's a fun tune to listen to, and it feels like classic Owl City. So there you go.
It really does. And it's so fun to look back of June and see where it is good. I'm not when I say all this stuff, I'm not trying to make it sound like I think of June is bad or I don't like it, but it was his early music and he hadn't learned everything that he knows now. And so you can hear the style of the early production and hear the style of early vocals and like learning how to mix things, and like his style was simpler back then. But because every it's like but it works. He had his vocals weren't as good as they are now, but it worked with his earlier production. I don't think those kind of vocals would work with his style of production now. His more mature vocals work with his more mature kind of complicated production. But like back then with that simpler production, those earlier vocals really worked and they fit the style.
So yeah, I was actually gonna say, and point out that I feel like we've given a good, I guess, a good opinion or a good
Review, rating.
review is a good word of it. Like we've given Of June a good name, compared to
Mhm.
like the overall fandom feeling on it. I don't
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna say that I hate Of June in general, or like I would say Captains and Cruise Ships is one of the better songs off of it, which is why we've picked it for this. But in general, I would say Captains and Cruise Ship really, or Of June really isn't like as bad as a lot of people would say. So I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I feel like the biggest thing is because as I have mentioned, the production level of June is so wildly different than his other works. Like maybe I'm dreaming, Ocean Eyes, and All Things Bright and Beautiful. They have similar sounds, and then kind of the Midsummer Station, Mobile Orchestra, Ultraviolet. They have similar sounds, and then you have Cinematic and Coco Moon that kind of fall into a similar camp. But of June is kind of its own thing. And it is interesting to listen to because I'm not at all. Once again, I'm prefacing that I'm not at all saying that I think Of June is bad when I say this because I don't want people to think I'm like hating on it because I'm not. Because I do enjoy Of June. Um, but it is fun to listen to Of June, hearing the quote unquote lower production value. He is still learning production. He is still learning vocals and mixing vocals. He's still learning how to do this whole music thing and fall into his Owl City style because he hadn't made music before then, but they were different styles than what he was going for Owl City. So he's still trying to establish himself in this Owl City style. And it's fun to look back and see like this is the beginning of Adam's Owl City journey. And he didn't get it quote unquote perfect the first try. You can look at Coco Moon and some of his later works, or even something like Ocean Eyes and All Things Bright and Beautiful, and say, wow, he's really good at this whole production thing and mixing thing, and he makes, and his vocals are pretty good, and all of this stuff. And Of June is good, but it's baby Adam on the beginning of his journey, and it's fun to look back at the beginning of his journey with Owl City and to get to see him like listen to each album in order and see him grow through each album. You can tell he just learns from one album to the next and his skill goes up, and it's a really fun experience listening to the albums in order like that with that like thought process in mind.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is just in general, it's fun to see how much you improve, or in this case, he improves. And I guess, like, this is why artists tell you, like, drawing artists tell
Yeah.
you to keep all your old pictures that you've worked on, because you want to see your progression, and it just makes whatever you've made now much more pleasing to yourself, rather than
Mhm.
saying, look at this, I've been staring at too long and it irks me because I made a mistake here, here, and here. But then if you go back and you look at your other stuff, you have made such a huge gap in however many years, however many months, and it's really cool to see that, especially in Adam's music. So yeah, I agree. That's a really good point.
Yes. It's a whole bunch of it's fun. Just I've been finding a lot of enjoyment in like listening to Owl City music, and specifically like because I feel like that's why because my focus is almost always on the lyrics, but I feel like this is why my focus wasn't on the lyrics this week, is because I've been having so much fun almost canceling out the lyrics in my head and just listening to the backing track. Because I have been getting into music production over the past year, and so I've had a bigger appreciation for that kind of production. And so it's fun kind of listening back to that's one of the things that Of June has been so special to me lately is because it has simpler production. So I feel like that's almost the level at I'm at right now. And so it's fun to know that everybody starts somewhere before they start to learn how to better it. You have to be bad before you can get better. And so it's like I feel like I'm at this earlier production value too, like Of June was. And so it's cool to think that if I keep at it like Adam has, that I can also get better at it over time. And so it's just fun looking back at the beginning of his journey and listening to his older music and saying, yeah, it's not as good as what he makes now. We can say that as a quote unquote, as a fact, and it's not dissing Adam, but it's just a fact, and it's almost a good thing to say Of June isn't as good as even Maybe I'm Dreaming and Ocean Eyes because it shows that he's learned. If he just stays at the same production level, well, that means he's not learning and growing. But to say that, yeah, that's Of June production value, not quite as good as his other stuff, but that's a good thing because it shows that he's grown.
Thank you so much for joining us for the 11th episode of Shuttle Bus Podcast. Don't forget you can follow us on Instagram at Shuttle Bus Podcast for more Owl City related content. Be sure to ride along with us next episode as we discuss Designer Skyline, Swimming in Miami, and Panda Bear as part 2 of our Of June series. For now, this is Sapph
And Faith.
saying goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, viewers.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye. We'll see you next time.